Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books are sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
This Day in Sports History. And welcome back to This Day in Sports History, a member of the Sports History Podcast Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sports. Learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. It's July 1st, and of course, it's only right to say Happy Bobby Bonilla Day. Looking for the perfect gift for that special someone who seems to have it all? How about deferred payment of about $1.2 million paid every July 1st for the next 25 years? That's a whole lot better than a membership to the Jelly of the Month Club, and it truly is the gift that keeps on giving the whole year. This goes back to a deal the New York Mets signed with Bobby Bonilla in 2000. The Mets owed Bonilla $5.9 million. But instead of paying the lump sum, decided on a deferred payment plan that started on July 1st, 2011 and will run through July 1st, 2035. Every July 1st, a check in the amount of $1,193,248.20 shows up in Bobby Bo's mailbox. Well, I suppose they probably have direct deposit set up by this point, but yeah, that's quite a deal, huh? Now, you've probably done a little bit of the math in your head and realized that 25 years of nearly $1.2 million is a whole lot more than the original $5.9 million, and you would be right. When it's all paid out, it will total $29.5 million. Now, this is where Bernie Madoff comes in. You know, the Ponzi scheme guy in New York that bilked millions of dollars out of a whole lot of financially savvy people. Well, the Mets ownership had money invested with Madoff in an annuity that was paying double-digit interest. The Mets were set to make a whole lot of money off that annuity, and they would use that to pay Bonilla a little of it each year. That is until the financial crisis of 2008, and the house of cards that Madoff had built came crashing down all around him, and people and organizations that had invested with him lost millions upon millions of dollars. Without the money being invested with Madoff and the promise of double-digit returns in perpetuity, the Mets would have just paid off the contract or worked something else out. Now, deferred payments are not unheard of. Ken Griffey Jr. signed a deferred deal with Cincinnati in 2000, with the final $3.5 million payment coming this year. Manny Ramirez, Matt Holliday, and Chris Davis all have deferred payments as part of their contracts, along with several others. But without a doubt, the most famous, or maybe with Madoff's name mixed in, it's the most infamous deferred payment deal ever signed. So if you happen to see a Mets fan today, wish them Happy Bobby Bonilla Day. They'll appreciate it for sure. So maybe on the opposite end of the Bobby Bo story is putting in a lot of work and not getting the payoff. Well, that happened a couple of times on this day over the last century or more. In 1920, Washington Senator Walter Johnson struck out 10, did not walk a single batter, didn't allow a hit, and won the game 1-0. So you're saying, yeah, he just threw a no-hitter. That's not bupkis, and you're right. But he was so close to a perfect game, it hurts. With 2 outs in the 9th and Johnson facing his 27th batter on the day, a ground ball to second baseman Bucky Harris was bobbled and the throw was late, allowing the only base runner on an error. Harris had provided the lone run in the 7th for the margin of victory, but his error cost Johnson the perfecto, and it was Johnson's only no-hitter of his career. Zooming ahead to 1990, New York's Andy Hawkins put in a whole lot of work and truly did not get any of the payoff. The Yankees were playing on the road against the Chicago White Sox, and things were going great for Hawkins as he carried a no-hitter into the 8th inning. That's when the dreamscape turned into a horror show. Cruising in the 8th with 2 outs, Yankee third baseman Mike Blowers threw the first wrench in the works when he booted a ground ball by Sammy Sosa. Ozzie Guillen and Lance Johnson then drew walks to load the bases. Robin Ventura lifted a lazy fly ball to left, but Jim Leyritz could not get a beat on it in the swirling wind, and he dropped it. Runners had been moving with 2 outs, and 3 of them scored. Yvonne Calderon followed that up with a pop fly to right, but this time, Jesse Barfield got a case of the whoopsies and he dropped it, scoring a 4th run. So if you're keeping score at home, that's 4 runs scored as a result of 3 errors and 2 walks. The no-hitter? It's still intact. The Yankees went quietly in the top of the 9th, ball game over. White Sox won 4-0, with Yankees pitcher Andy Hawkins becoming just the 2nd pitcher to throw a no-hitter and lose, joining Houston Colt 45 pitcher Ken Johnson, who did it back in 1964. It's happened 1 time since, when Boston's Matt Young did it in 1992. But hang on a second, even more insult with Hawkins' no-hitter. Baseball Commissioner Fay Vincent decreed a year later that a no-hitter must be one pitched a full 9 innings. Hawkins only pitched 8 full innings, since the White Sox did not need to hit in the 9th. Hawkins' effort is not even recognized by Major League Baseball as a no-hitter. On this day in 1956, golfer Arnold Palmer won his first PGA Tour event on U.S. soil. Playing the Insurance City Open in Hartford, Connecticut, Palmer snaked a putt in to beat Ted Kroll on the 2nd playoff hole, ironically with a putter that Kroll had given him a few weeks earlier. This was actually Palmer's 2nd PGA Tour win of his career, but his first came at the Canadian Open in 1955. On this day in 1998, the NBA lockout began. This was the 3rd lockout in 4 years, but unlike the others, this one lasted more than 6 months and resulted in games being missed for the first time. Money was the key issue, as it always is in strikes and lockouts. The owners wanted a more solid salary cap. The players wanted the money to keep on flowing. With an expired collective bargaining agreement, the players refused to sit down with the owners. An agreement was finally worked out on January 19th, and an abbreviated 50-game season started on February 5th. Attendance and television viewership was down once play resumed. Fans were disgruntled at the hubris of both league owners and players. Patrick Ewing did not do much to sway fans' opinions of whiny ball players when he answered a reporter's question about NBA players making a whole lot of money by saying, "Yeah, we make a lot of money, but we spend a lot too." Of course, Michael Jordan's 2nd retirement a few days before the lockout ended was also a cause for diminished interest in the game. And since we're on the topic of a player saying the wrong thing, on this day in 1985, Philadelphia Phillies 3rd baseman Mike Schmidt took the field for pregame introductions wearing a long black wig and sunglasses. Why the disguise? Well, while the Phillies were on a road trip in Montreal, a story about Schmidt was published in which he responded to harsh treatment by the fans recently by saying Phillies fans were beyond help and the stadium was a mob scene. Well, this was the first game back at Veterans Stadium after the road trip, and Phillies fans came out ready to rain down boos on Schmidt. But when the starters were announced and lined up on the foul line, Schmidt came out with his wiggy disguise, and it changed the hearts of most of the fans who, instead of booing, gave him a standing ovation instead. And one more story for you today. Back on June 28th, I talked about Mark the Bird Fidrich's coming out party in Detroit. Well, in that story, I mentioned that he had a great rookie year, but he was plagued by injuries and was never the same or even close to what he did back in 1976. Well, on this day in 1982, Fidrich was trying to work his way back to the majors in the Red Sox organization, and he was pitching for AAA Pawtucket. Opposing him on this night was Dave Righetti, doing a short stint with the Columbus Clippers. Despite winning AL Rookie of the Year honors in 1981, meddling Yankees owner George Steinbrenner was disenchanted with Righetti and the amount of walks that he was giving up. So when he was sent to Columbus, Steinbrenner called it a 2.5-week intensive brush-up. More than 9,000 fans crammed into Pawtucket's 6,000-seat stadium to watch. Righetti had the better night on the mound, striking out 12 in only 5 innings of work. Fidrich, much like he did back in '76, pitched a complete game even though he didn't have his best stuff. Fidrich's Sox won 7-5. Righetti was soon back with the Yankees, and he would pitch a no-hitter a year later. For Fidrich, this was just about the end of the road. He would never be called up by the Red Sox nor any other team in the majors. And time now for today's non-sports Did You Know? A bolt of lightning is about 5 times hotter than the sun. That's all for today. I'll have more tomorrow on This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.